It's another edition of Time About the Movies, and today we're taking a look at the movies of December 13th, 1991. 3 movies to look at, 3 of them particularly really good movies, so let's go ahead and jump right on into it. Let's start with the first movie that we have here, and that is Robin Williams, Julia Roberts, Dustin Hoffman, and Bob Hoskins in Steven Spielberg's adaptation of Peter Pan, simply known as Hook. A lot of interesting things to note about this particular movie. This movie actually was in development at both Walt Disney Pictures and Paramount Pictures when they were making movies together in the early 1980s. They had done some other movies like Dragon Slayer and Popeye, which were not big hits financially, but have had nostalgic followings since then. But they were really... there was a belief that this was actually going to happen in 1985 when Paramount had like if you go onto YouTube, there's a video where Paramount talks about their future films from 1985, talk about different movies like the next Indiana Jones film, the next Star Trek movie, these projects that were in development, and eventually did come out, but some of them not until way after they were announced in this thing. And one of the things that was addressed in here was Steven Spielberg's Peter Pan. Also, what's very interesting about this is that Spielberg wanted Michael Jackson to play the adult Peter Pan, but he was interested. Jackson was interested in it, but he didn't want to play an adult version of Peter Pan. I think he wanted to play the real Peter Pan as a kid, which would have been very weird. But there was also another interesting tidbit about who they wanted to get for Hook. They wanted to get guys. They had auditioned guys like David Bowie, Christopher Lloyd, Donald Sutherland. I mean, really think about what we could have had here. We could have had a Steven Spielberg-directed Peter Pan movie with Michael Jackson as Peter Pan and David Bowie as Captain Hook. That probably would have been the most awesome thing ever, really. But, sadly, it was never meant to be. And for the longest time, this movie was in a lot of production hell. And then it eventually went over to TriStar Pictures, and then it finally got made with the people that they had involved in here, including Robin Williams, and also Julia Roberts, who was then coming off of Pretty Woman, the success of that movie. Dustin Hoffman, of course, coming off of Rain Man, and Bob Hoskins coming off the success of Who Framed Roger Rabbit. And as far as the movie itself goes, yeah, it's a pretty solid movie for the most part. I mean, it's a movie that really... It's not the best adaptation of Peter Pan, obviously, but it is still a pretty good adaptation. Like, I think it is still a really good movie, especially considering some of the Peter Pan adaptations we've gotten since then. I mean, the 2003 one was not terrible, but it was mostly forgettable. We had Return to Neverland, the animated sequel to Peter Pan, which was not that very good, even though there were some interesting things about that one. And then you had Pan from 2015 with Hugh Jackman as Captain Hook, and that ended up being horrible, despite the people involved in that one. But, yeah, this is the one that still holds up to this very day, really. I mean, this is the one that's still... It's very formulaic, in terms of the script. Like, you can kind of predict what's going to happen. And, some of the backstory of how Peter Pan decided to stop being a kid and just grow up. It's interesting, but it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense when you really look at it again. I mean, really look at that scene where he's talking about his past, and there's just elements in there that don't really make a ton of sense, but I mean, what do I know? I mean, what do I know? I mean, other people have said that it does make sense to them, so I'm not really going to argue it with them. It's just my personal opinion, but like I said, I really don't hate the movie. I really don't hate that. Far from it. I think it is a solid adaptation and a solid twist to do with this story to have the adult Peter Pan in this. And everybody looks like they're having a good time. Robin Williams is very good here. Dustin Hoffman looks like he's having the time of his life as Hook. If there is one person I don't think really has done all that well here, it's Julia Roberts. But as we later find out from the interview that Steven Spielberg did for 60 Minutes, they really did not get along together on set. I think Julia Roberts even said that the comments that Steven Spielberg said about the fact that they weren't able to work with each other in this really hurt her feelings. She couldn't believe the person that she knew and trusted was actually hesitant to come to her defense. And I don't really know if their relationship ever really got back to if they ever reconciled on that. I'd have to look into that, but you could definitely tell when you look at the movie itself that she's just Julia Roberts playing somewhat of a Tinkerbell character. She's not really playing Tinkerbell overall, but it just doesn't really work all that. It just didn't work for me. I didn't think it was I don't think she was, like I said, I don't think she was terrible, but it definitely wasn't the best performance that she's given as an actress. But I mean, overall, I do have the complaints about it, but I don't hate this movie whatsoever. Like I said, it's certainly heads above all the other Peter Pan movies we've gotten since then. It does show that Steven Spielberg was showing that magic he had, that he was kind of missing for a couple of years with stuff like Empire of the Sun and Always. But like I said, it's a very decent film. It's a decent film. I enjoy it. I enjoy it very much. I don't think it, like I said, I don't think it's a classic. I don't think it's a perfect film like most people do. But it is a really decent. It's a really good film. It's a really good film that I'm glad that I can watch it over and over again and never get really tired of it. But so that's all I have to say about Hook. Let's go ahead and move on to the next movie, and that is Bruce Willis and Damon Wayans in The Last Boy Scout. First of all, try to bring a gun onto a football field nowadays, like in any league, the NFL, college football, high school football. Can you imagine if somebody tried to do that and how fast they'd be tackled down before they'd even do anything? It's bizarre. It's a bizarre way to start a movie, but it does keep your attention going. And you know what? It makes for it leads into what I think is a pretty damn good action film. You got Bruce Willis and Damon Wayans. You got a script by Shane Black at the peak of his writing career. Tony Scott, the director of Top Gun and Days of Thunder, on this. And it actually does work. It's a very solid film. Very Lethal Weapon-ish, I would say. But for the most part, it is very much... It's like I said, it's very much Lethal Weapon. It's another movie where it's kind of like something like Tango and Cash or some of these other buddy cop movies. But you know what? It works on its own. I mean, it has a nice visual style that really sticks out. For Bruce Willis, it was a nice comeback for him after Hudson Hawk and Billy Bathgate both bombed this year. And for Damon Wayans, it showed that he has potential as a great action star too. Because even though I think this was only one of his earlier films that he did as an action star. But I think this is actually I take that back. I think this is the only action movie he's been involved in. I'd have to double check that again. Because I know Keenen Ivory Wayans was in a movie with Steven Seagal, but I don't know. That's something I definitely have to look into. But as far as this movie goes, it is a pretty fun movie. It's a fun action comedy. It's a typical, like I said, it's a Lethal Weapon style movie. But Wayans and Willis, I think, work off each other really well. The visual look of the film is very impressive. The action scenes are still really good. And there's a good bit of comedy in there. It is a very fun movie. It's a movie that I don't think did very well at the box office. I know it was a huge I know it wasn't a big critical hit either, but it has developed this cult following over the years because people realize that the writing is still very good. The direction is still very good here. The chemistry between Willis and Wayans is still very good. And it really is, it's probably one of the best movies Tony Scott has ever made as a director, in my opinion. I mean, it's a movie that I can go back to all the time and just realize that how good of a movie this really is. It's a really good, well-made action movie. It's just exactly what you're looking for. It's a ton of fun. I really enjoy this movie a lot. I'm glad to see that this movie has gained a reputation over the years as a decent action film. And it shows why. It's a very good, solid film. I had a great time with it. It's one I'd love to watch over and over again. So, that's The Last Boy Scout. Let's go ahead and move on to the last movie that we have here, and that is Warren Beatty's Bugsy. Warren Beatty, of course, playing the gangster Bugsy Siegel. You also have Annette Bening in here, Harvey Keitel, Ben Kingsley, Elliot Gould, Joe Mantegna, Barry Levinson coming back to direct this film after the last movie he made, Avalon, came out a year before. James Toback is the writer of this. And for Warren Beatty, it was kind of a step in the right direction after Dick Tracy, which wasn't a bad movie, but it was a big hit, and it was a big hit too. But it also didn't do as well as I think they wanted it to. But this was a nice return to form for him, and this is really a great film. I mean, Beatty really carries this movie all the way through. I mean, he's great as Bugsy Siegel, and his relationship with Annette Bening's character, Virginia Hill. Annette Bening is fantastic in this movie. It's a shame that she didn't get nominated for Best Actress because she really was amazing in this. And You know, anybody that could stop a single guy like Warren Beatty from being single and ended up marrying her for a little bit, I mean, that says a lot. That says a lot about her. In fact, are they still married? Let me double check here. No, they are still married. 30 years. 30 years together. How about that? But yeah, you could definitely see their relationship working on here. Their chemistry is very good, and they give these great, solid performances. The movie overall is a terrific film. It's a really good, well-made film. It does what a lot of these gangster movie knockoffs that we got during 1991 failed to do. It creates something new and unique with its story. It creates something different. It creates something exciting. It has a nice visual flair to it. The writing is great. The direction is great. The acting is great. It's just a great movie all around. This is exactly what you want to see in a good gangster film. And this is probably one of the best, more underrated gangster films when you look at films like The Godfather and The Goodfellas that everyone talks about. This one doesn't really get a ton of attention, but it's really a fantastic film. If you want to see Warren Beatty at his best, definitely check out Bugsy. It's a movie I highly recommend. So on that note, we wrap up another edition of Time About the Movies. Next time we meet, we'll look at the movies of December 20th. 5 movies to look at, including Steve Martin and Diane Keaton in the remake of Father of the Bride. Kevin Costner in Oliver Stone's JFK, maybe the best movie of the year. Definitely one of the best movies of the year, but is it the best overall? We'll definitely delve into that. We'll also look at High Heels, Rush, and also Rhapsody in August. So we'll have those movies to look at next time. But until then, thank you guys for watching. And if you want to see more videos like this, please check out the playlist on the next page. Check out the previous episode. And I'll see you guys tomorrow for another episode. So thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. And until then, take care.